Fantastic. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another Shelter in Studio. Today's featured artist is Jose Ramirez Calamateo. Jose studied film and design at SF State. And in addition to his work I was gonna try to pretend I know what he does for work. He designs computer systems, I think is what he said, but I don't really understand what that means. So in addition to his day job, he's an artist, also working under the moniker Nebula. And he's sitting today in the Side Project Studio, which is a space he shares with a couple of friends. He works in a whole bunch of different media, photography, screen print, makes comics, design work, in addition to the linoleum prints he's done for us for the last 3 years as a Roadworks personal prints artist. So this is sort of a Roadworks 2020 post event. We wanted to do one of these with our Shelter in Studio, with our personal prints artist. And when I was looking through, I really enjoyed, I find Jose's work to be really personally appealing, but I also really like that I can't necessarily look at any of his work and say that it looks like it was done by the same artist. So I think that's really fun and look forward to seeing more of his work and hearing about it. So Jose, you are on. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this this event. As you know, as I talked to Sarah, I don't normally talk about my work. But here we go. We'll see how it goes. So this is the studio. I share it with my 2 friends, Dan Zhao, which is another designer, and Anna Brenning, which is a printmaker and now teaching. And they're also artists and designers, and I love spending time with them. Although nowadays it's a little harder, but it's really nice. And so, I grew up in the Salinas Valley. A little bit about myself. I worked alongside my parents picking strawberries for a living until I was an adult, and my mom dragged me into, to school. And from there, I ended up at SF State, which thanks to Nancy Noble and Steve Jones, I was able to graduate and learn design principles that I apply now to not only my actual professional work, but also personal work. So for my actual work, I actually designed user interfaces and user experiences, which is, all the website stuff and what you see on your phone. And so today I was gonna just kind of walk through a few things that most people don't really have seen. Work that I usually share at zine festivals and stuff like that. And the first thing that I wanted to share with you guys is something that I kind of created because, a lot of things come from your own culture, maybe sometimes from your own kind of emotional, turmoil or whatever, happiness, you could say. And the first thing that I wanted to show you is this print. Is a loteria print, and it's something that I kind of created for my, my wife at the time, and I wanted to really reconstruct the idea of, what the loteria actual cards are. In this case, I showed, reconstructed everything in terms of lines. It's not something kind of typical in loteria. They're a little more kind of, more realistic. In this case, I just wanted to make it into some simple forms, and obviously change some of them because, some of them are a little more, racist, I would say. And I am willing to admit that. But so I wanted to come back and be like, hey, let's remake this. And so it's something that I made, and I screen printed it. It was awesome. It was a long process to try to figure out, but I kind of simplified it in terms of design. Simple forms of what I really wanted to communicate. What is the story of it? And in this case, it was kind of a representation of what my relationship with my, my partner at the time. And it was, she loves bread. I love bread. And it was kind of building upon these cards and seeing how I could actually spell those things. And, after that, a lot of people actually asked me about this, which is if I was going to go and do the 40 set, which I'm still working on, I admit, but it's going along. I'm not going to say when I'm going to get it done, but eventually. And so at times I would actually sell this at zine festivals and people really liked it. And at times I wanted to actually see how people would experience it if I gave them the option to choose what the last card was. And that was actually pretty fascinating to see how people kind of interacted that way. And, for me, it was like, oh, I get to practice my drawing skill on the spot and see if I'm actually worthy of actually doing this. And so, but the next one I actually did, which is kind of the follow-up is, everybody loves guac, guacamole. And so I wanted to reconstruct that into the pieces of what guacamole was, what it takes to like make guacamole.
Jose,
Yes.
will you hold it just a little bit higher up so we can see the little banner at the bottom too, please? Thank you.
Yep. And so, obviously the avocado, mix it into the molcajete, which is everything. You just pour it in and then you put your vegetables in. And that's how you make guacamole. And so, for my love of, guacamole, I kind of made that for myself because sometimes I kind of forget what the ingredients are. And so it hangs in the kitchen just to make sure that I never forget about these things. And there has been a weird consistency of things that in these couple prints that I did was the other one that I kind of did, and it's related to food, is this. And this is my ramen print. And this came from my son, myself, and my partner at the time of our fascination with ramen, which is, we used to go to ramen shops and everything and kind of buy ramen for quite a while. And one day we were sitting down and we were talking about it. And I think I asked my son to like go make ramen or something like that. And as I was thinking about it, I was really thinking about the aspect of like those labels on the back of, ramen packages, how obscure the images are and how I wanted it to like look better and kind of more artistic. And so I took those elements and I was like, okay, well, it takes, you boil the water, you put in the ingredients, and then you kind of eat. In this case, I was like, well, let's give the users actually, what they want to like, eat, or what the ingredients would be, which is, the ingredients for it. And I started like messing around with the onions and stuff. I was like, oh, does it look right? Does the onion look right? Does this look like pork? I was like, how can I reconstruct pork to look in terms of the simplest lines and still be pork or be any other object? And so for it, probably this piece kind of took me a little longer because, I wanted to make sure that people knew what it like was without asking me. People would ask me what it says on the back, and I said, it says ramen in Japanese. And, they're like, oh yeah, oh. And so I like seeing those responses from people when I would share it and they would ask me questions. And it's been kind of really nice to kind of share that. From there, I've also participated in some in the Thai Thursday events at the Center for the Book. And one of the things I've also like doing is typography. One of the things that I did for my son, and as you notice, there's a lot of references to my son because he's kind of the inspirational person in my life, where I was we have these long conversations of, the companies he wants to build or building a new gaming system or stuff like that. And he had this idea, he wanted a skateboard company. And so he's like, Dad, make me a logo. And I was like, what? How much are you going to pay me? So we had this long conversation about, uh, my proposal and what I was going to do and execute. But I decided to make him a skateboard because he wanted to learn how to skate. And his company is called Black Cat. And I wanted to give him something that was very trendy and it's very similar to other skate companies. Wanted to play with the idea of typography, and he's told me he loves pink, so I ended up incorporating pink and blue and just kind of getting it to like seem, unified, and that, he would like really gravitate towards. So I never told him that I actually made it for him. And when I actually got it in the mail, he was so stoked about it that he was just like, let's go put the wheels on. Let's put all this on. And he was super excited. And I really liked the fact that there was no process to creating these things. It was a random moment of, my son wants this. I'm just gonna figure out what it's gonna look like and, throw some ideas and see if he likes it. And he did gravitate towards this because it was very kind of Santa Cruz, skateboard companies. And so I really enjoyed it, that he enjoyed it. And it was really nice to kind of play around with these letter forms. And a lot of people really kind of gravitated towards it at the Type Thursday. So it was really cool to see that happen.
That's a pretty pristine looking skate deck. Did you
Yes.
put the wheels on it?
What was that?
Did you actually put the wheels on it?
Yes. So the wheels are here.
Oh, okay.
But I took them off because, it blocks some of the lettering and you wouldn't be able to read it. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But it's a little pristine because he was really into it for probably a couple of years, but he wasn't really doing ollies or stuff like that. And so you can't see the marks in the back. You can see it at the tips.
Oh yeah, there it is.
You can't see it in the middle because he wasn't like, super, but he loved his skate company. There's actually a different, a actual figurine that we did to like, for the company, which is kind of awesome. It was based on his sketches. So
nice.
Yeah. And I've mentioned that I've participated in zine festivals, and as Sarah's noticing, like the differences of things that I make. So these are zines that I make. This is one basically that I created for this guy. So this is Nebula, but this is the logo that I made, which represents kind of my work overall. So when my son was born, I created this as a, because I wanted to be a designer toy maker. So I made a bunch of little figurines, and I really enjoyed this one. And I was like, oh, this really kind of represents what my process is and what Nebula is. And so I created this little thing. I casted it, and it's made of crayon. So I can make a bunch of them. And then at the time also, I created this little package. It's a triangle, which opens up and he's inside. I'm not gonna open it up right now because, it's gonna take me probably 2 minutes to like take it apart. But I played around with the form itself. I wanted it to like be different. It's also a triangle because of, the logo itself, triangle. I don't know if it's actually, marketable, because how do you stack triangles on top of each other? But, I've started making these zines, and, it's kind of, aliens and octopuses, stuff like that. And so I started to develop a particular style to it that was kind of related just to this kind of idea of this alien creature, what Nebula is, what my company is, or what I do in terms of work. And obviously, a nebula is interstellar gas cloud in space. And so, uh, I thought that really reflected a lot into my process and how I work and um, everything that I do. And, at Zine Festivals also have done, this, which is basically a zine about and the perspective of pigeons. Uh, pigeons in San Francisco have conversations about, what happens in San Francisco. And yes, I do go around taking pictures of the pigeons, and sometimes I end up birding also. So it was kind of nice to use my photography skills in terms of showing stuff. And then, there's a bunch of stuff, and obviously I can't show you everything. And one of the kind of other things which came back to Roadworks was I started making, I wanted to make these protest posters, and I went to SF State. It's known for, students protesting. I worked at the Student Center, the Cesar Chavez Student Center. I learned about, a lot of the activism and stuff like that. So as part of this whole, Trump era, and all the stuff that was happening with immigrants, and I'm sure you guys have seen this. This was basically related to my family. In Guadalajara, we are called Tapatíos, and so this is really reflective of my culture, where I came from, and how our culture is kind of embedded everywhere in America, even though we sometimes don't see it that way. And the way the skull is and everything is related to my grandfather, which he's passed away, but I wanted to remember him in a particular way. So and this basically brought me to Roadworks, where you guys have probably seen the when I first participated, I did the Si Se Puede, Dolores Huerta, which was really fun. Probably the first time I actually was cutting a linoleum block that big. I didn't know what to do. So there was a lot of experimentation happening, but it kind of evolved over time what I really wanted to do. And so, next year I came back and I did James Baldwin, and that was really cool. I wanted to keep these lines of imperfections and what the drawing kind of was. And it really kind of talked more about the actual activists of their struggles and everything they went through. And I think, the quote itself is very kind of reminiscent of things that, are happening now that we don't really understand. And then finally, this year, this one happened. This is an actual screen print, but the one I did for the Center for the Book is, the linoleum, which eventually I'll get back. But it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the community that's at the Center for the Book, and I'm glad that I was able to transition some of the design skills over to printmaking and kind of learn a new skill. But yeah, so
Cool.
I'm watching the clock, so.
Oh, I know you were concerned. No, we're doing just fine. Jenny wanted to know if you would talk a little bit about your alphabet typography project that you've been posting on Instagram.
Oh yeah. So that's something that I really kind of was intrigued by. I've noticed that there's no bloated version of what is it, Old English, black letter, fracture, whatever you want to call it in this case. And what I really wanted to do is given a bloated version, a fatter version of it, and at first it became about the drawings themselves, and then afterwards it was more of the geometry of the letter forms and how they kind of related to each other and how they would all come together. And so I'm trying to, at the moment, I'm trying to fix them so that way they kind of go together. Because when I first started, it was part of the, yes.
I'm doing this very poorly, and I know that Jose is spotlit, but if you can see me at all, you can see that I'm holding up my phone so you can see one of the letters in case you're
Yes.
not on Instagram.
Yeah, so it was more of the geometry and like the, you know, the letter forms, and hopefully, you know, I'm still in the process of getting it done, but the challenge now is like making sure they all kind of follow. And when I put them together and when you type in your, you know, typeface, that it would just kind of, you know, be nice and arranged. So it's still a process.
So the goal is for this to be like a usable like digital font.
Yep.
Nice.
I mean, at some point you could probably like cut it out of, you know, wooden blocks. So yeah.
Well, if anyone has questions, now's a good time to type them into the chat, so I'll get them in time. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask Jose to tell us a little bit about his pinata project that he told me about yesterday that I enjoyed very much. Unless you have something else that you have.
Well, I have a lot of stuff, but.
Okay, well then I leave it up to you.
So let me see if I could share. Can I share?
You can in 2 seconds.
And I know I talked to her about it, and it's so the project just came out because before I graduated from San Francisco State, you know, shout out to BD Wong.
Famous alumni.
Yes, famous alumni. So I decided to take an art class. And since I had already done my, I don't know if you guys could see this.
Are you sharing?
You're
not sharing, but I think you can.
Okay. Cool. So when I was when I was at SF State, before I graduated, I took an art class, and I had done black and white photography for a while, and that's how I ended up in cinema. And my professor at the time saw that I was taking these random pictures, and I take a lot of random pictures. They all don't, and as you've seen, all my work is kind of random. But he saw these pictures that I was taking about piñatas and their kind of life cycle. And so I took this picture, and we kind of had this we made the piñata almost like a real person. So it was, you know, in the car with us. You know, we were giving it food. You know, it didn't know what was going to happen the next day. It was totally, you know, out of the blue, but it was having fun. You know, there was a couple where,
happy.
yeah, there's one where he's like, you know, he's vomiting on the floor, like he's had a rough time. So we really had a lot of fun with this whole piñata thing. And so my professor saw one of the pictures that he's like, why don't you do a series of these? And I'm like, you realize I have to go out there and like, you know, buy all these piñatas, break them apart, and then do it, right? I don't think I could do it within my timeline. But it was a really fun project, and hopefully, you know, at some point I will put these together as we kind of progress. But yeah, it was, and this is my son. This is my son at, you know, 2013. So we would always pick up a piñata for his birthday and break it apart the next day. So I just thought it was kind of funny that we never think about these inanimate objects without life, and we look at them as these things, just these things that, you know, will go into the waste. But in my mind, in these series of pictures that I took, he will always be, you know, remembered, at least, you know, in my mind and with my son. And I get a crack out of it because this picture is saved on my phone for a while. So since 2013. So each time I'm having a bad day, it's nice to see this.
That's a classic.
Yes.
Carolyn wants to know When or where do you feel the most inspired? It's a big question, Carolyn.
Um, yes. So when I'm taking a shower or doing dishes, uh,
Water.
because the mundane of the tasks actually helps you kind of let go of a lot of things. And so when I'm taking a shower, I'm only focused on, like, washing myself. Or when I'm washing dishes, I'm just focused on, washing the dishes.
Mhm.
And so it's the mundane task actually helps me to let go of things. And as I'm staring out, because my window faces the Golden Gate Park, um, things just jump in out of randomness. And so, yeah.
Nice. I'm impressed you had an answer.
Well, I've thought about this a couple times because
Really?
I have to replicate this at one point. So when
Mhm.
I'm feeling kind of stressed. So
Um, and is your work available for sale anywhere?
uh, I would say sort of. As I told Sarah, I'm not good at this. And so I've done zine festivals, and that's how I've gotten my work out. And I will say thank you to my therapist, because she's kind of said, maybe you should get yourself out there more and show your work. And so I thank her for that, because I think a lot of people have been asking about that. So I will soon.
You
When
will
I,
soon
yeah.
have some sort of commercial store, something.
Yeah, I mean, I have that Squarespace, store, but
Okay.
I haven't really populated it with
Mm,
anything. So
fair enough. Um, Casey, we've got a little bit, just another minute here. Is curious about where your studio is and where the press came from. I don't think that's your press necessarily.
no, so the press is not mine. I kind of adopted screen printing more. The press is Anna Branning's press, and she brought it over after Dutch Door Press kind of closed its doors, so she didn't want to get rid of it. So we kind of got the studio so she could keep her press and stuff. And,
Nice. And you're in
yeah.
San Francisco?
Yes, I'm in San Francisco, inner Richmond. Um, very close to, what is it, Park Presidio,
Mhm.
on Erie, and so yeah.
House of Bagels.
Uh, what is that store called? Bodine. I'm like right
Oh,
next to Bodine.
okay. All right. Well, as always happens, we are out of time. So thank you, Jose, and thank you everyone for coming. This has been recorded and will be up on the website in a couple of days. And next week, we'll be with Rebecca Chamley, who I think is here. Hi, Rebecca, and Pie in the Sky Press in Simi Valley, and we'll be touring her spot. So those tickets are up available on Eventbrite right now. So sign up, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.